here? Okay, so this evening we'll be going a little more into depth on Ayurvedic nutrition. Some of the things that we'll be going over will be diet protocols by dosha for increasing Agni and also protocol for decreasing Ama. We'll discuss food and its effect on the mind. We'll also look at common digestive disorders from both a Western perspective and then from an Ayurvedic perspective. And then finally, we'll do a review of cooking assignments and then go over some recipes for khichdi, kashayas, and other cooking assignments. So here we'll look at a light diet for Vata dosha. So as we know, with any sort of imbalance, Agni is the first thing that we want to address, since proper digestion is really fundamental for health and healing. So when we have Agni that is impaired by Vata imbalance, we first want to address this variable or Vishama Agni. And we do this by implementing a light diet for Vata, which will help bring the Agni back into balance and then balance Vata dosha in general. So grains in a light Vata diet can include finely ground whole wheat flour made into unleavened bread, such as tortilla and pita bread, as well as semolina flour, couscous, rice that is steamed or boiled, prepared in a soup or made more watery, and oats that are prepared in water or milk and made more watery. We want to avoid grains that are too light and dry, as this will be more aggravating to Vata dosha. Legumes, yellow mung beans are best since they are easy to digest, and these can be made into dal or cooked with rice to make khichdi. We'll again want to make it a more watery formulation for Vata dosha. Vegetables in a light Vata diet should be well cooked in a watery, brothy, or soupy preparation, and we'll want to include warming Vata spices. Choose from Vata-friendly options. Fruits should be ripe and in season. Again, we'll want to use the Vata balancing fruit options, and they should preferably be cooked or stewed. Any dried fruits that are eaten should be soaked in order to rehydrate them so that they're not too drying for Vata. Dairy products such as ghee, milk, goat's milk, buttermilk, lassi are all going to be good for a light Vata diet, and they should be consumed either at room temperature or warm. Again, we know that we always want to avoid cold beverages in general. And all oils, except for coconut, can be used in small amounts. And all sweeteners, except for honey, can also be used in small amounts. And specific spices that are beneficial in a light Vata diet are going to be cumin, ginger, fenugreek, hing or asafoetida, mustard seeds, cinnamon, cardamom, fennel, cloves, salt, lemon juice, and tamarind. And then all other spices in small amounts can be consumed as well. So a light diet for Pitta dosha, this will be the type of diet to help balance an increase in Pitta and calm the Tikshna or sharp Agni. So As we know, Tikshna Agni is characterized by overactive digestion, loose stools, and really just general heat in the digestive system that creates indigestion. So for a light pitta balancing diet, we're going to want to focus on foods that are going to be cooling. So grains for a light pitta diet can include finely ground whole wheat flour, made into crackers or unleavened bread like tortilla, pita bread, semolina, and couscous as well. Rice should be steamed and boiled, prepared in a soup, or we can consume rice flakes. Oats should be prepared in water or milk and made a bit more watery. Barley can be made into light preparations such as soup. And in terms of legumes, we can have mung beans in a dal preparation, or again with rice made into a khichdi or in a soup. And again, we want foods that are going to digest as easily as possible. So well-cooked vegetables in a juicy or soupy preparation with pitta cooling spices. And we'll want to choose from pitta friendly vegetables, such as leafy greens like kale, or things like zucchini, sweet potatoes. And then for fruits, we want them to be ripe and in season. And again, choose from pitta friendly options such as apples, sweet berries, and cooked or stewed is often preferable because that makes them easier to digest. Dairy products such as ghee, milk, goat's milk, buttermilk, lassi. Lassi made with rose water added is excellent for pitta dosha because it'll be more cooling. And then for oils, ghee is going to be best, but some others like sunflower or coconut oil are okay in small amounts for cooking. And in terms of sweeteners, turbinado sugar, or I would avoid honey since it's going to be too heating, but something like date sugar, which is actually just really finely chopped dates, is going to be something that's going to be okay for pitta dosha. And then in terms of spices and condiments, we'll want to use coriander, cumin, ginger in very small amounts. That's actually going to be pretty heating. And then turmeric, fennel, cinnamon in moderate amounts, cardamom, and then lemon juice also in small amounts. So a light kapha diet is going to help decrease the excess kapha accumulation in the body and jumpstart the slow manda agni that is present. So for kapha, grains should be used sparingly, and they should be light, drier grains, such as whole wheat crackers, unleavened bread, quinoa, rice that's steamed or boiled. Also, grains like quinoa, millet, and barley are going to be lighter, and oats that are prepared less watery. Legumes, mung beans can be made into a dal or with rice, again as khichdi, And when we prepare this, it should be made less watery and less brothy with lots of warming kapha spices. Vegetables should be cooked vegetables that are kapha pacifying, but they don't need to be cooked as thoroughly as when we prepare them for vata. Fruits should be ripe and in season kapha friendly options such as apples or cranberries and pomegranate. And cooked fruits with kapha spices are going to be more beneficial since this is easier to digest and better for the kapha slower digestion. Dairy products should be minimized since they are kapha promoting. Oils should also be used very sparingly, and we definitely want to avoid heavy or sweet oils for kapha. Sesame oil and ghee can be used in very small amounts. Sweeteners should generally be avoided except for raw honey in very small amounts. Raw honey is dry, light, and heating, so even though it is sweet, it's not going to be as aggravating to kapha dosha. But one thing we want to note for honey is that it should never be heated or cooked since this will create toxins. And then in terms of spices and condiments, all spices except for salt can be used for kapha dosha, and we want to emphasize ones that are more pungent and sharp, like dry ginger or pipali, since these are going to help ignite the agni that is slower in kapha dosha. Here we'll go over a diet protocol that will help to reduce ama. So as we know, ama is the sort of toxins that accumulate in the body as a result of undigested or improperly digested food. And ama is characterized and accompanied by low agni, chronic fatigue, and lethargy. So when ama is present, we will see a thick coating on the tongue, and we may experience congestion, loss of strength, dull eyes, any type of skin issue, fever, weight gain, poor circulation, fluid retention, edema and swelling, and any sort of generalized aches and pains. So when ama is not cleared or eliminated, it can become very problematic. So since the qualities of ama are in direct opposition to those of agni, the presence of ama can really impair our digestive process. So ama occurs as a result of improperly digested food, but then it perpetuates this poor digestion, creating this cycle that really kind of breeds imbalance and then potentially disease. So an ama reducing diet protocol is going to be recommended for anyone who is rejuvenating after panchakarma therapy. So panchakarma is an intense therapy that eliminates toxins from the body. So after this, it's really important to reintegrate back into normal life slowly and gradually with a light diet. So that's where we would want to incorporate this. And it's also beneficial for anyone who is recovering from illness. So anyone in recovery is going to likely have ama accumulation. So this diet will help to address that. Anyone trying to lose weight or who needs a metabolic kickstart will usually have a sluggish digestive system. which means that there's probably some ama present. So this will be beneficial for that. And an ama eliminating diet will help to really address any sort of digestion issues that someone might be experiencing. So to reduce ama, we'll definitely adopt a vegetarian diet and will strictly reduce wheat and milk, and then eat the same thing every day for a specified period of time. So this time of week will vary depending on the amount of ama present or the circumstances. It might be 2 weeks, it might be 4 weeks. So for example, someone who is getting over an intense illness may want to adopt this diet for a longer period of time. So typically the diet will include a sort of fruit stew for breakfast, khichdi for lunch, which is the main meal of the day, and then dinner with dosha appropriate veggies and spices. Snacks, if any, will be light and can be something like a hot broth or a small amount of mung dal. Beverages should be hot or warm water or an ama scraping kashaya. So here is an example of an ama reducing 7-day diet protocol. So again, breakfast is usually a stewed fruit of some sort, and this can be modified with specific dosha pacifying spices. So you see in the first column here, this is an example for kapha. Second is an example for pitta dosha, and the third is an example for vata. So as we see for breakfast, pitta and vata dosha can also include some sort of crepe made from rice or mung dal. And then we see that the largest meal of the day should be midday and is some sort of khichdi. And for an ama reducing diet, I would recommend using yellow mung dal, since split mung beans are the most easily digested. And then we see the snack can be something like roasted vegetables for kapha. For pitta, maybe a veggie broth or cup of dal, rose jam, sunflower seeds or almonds roasted in ghee. For vata, the snack can be veggie broth or a cup of dal with ghee, nuts roasted in ghee, or milk with ghee and nutmeg. And again, dinner should be very light. Soup is a good choice because it is warm and nourishing. And for pitta or vata dosha, dinner can be a small amount of khichdi made with dosha appropriate spices. So typical Western fasting or detoxing actually tends to reduce agni and push ama deeper into tissues, which really is the opposite of what we would intend it to do. This happens because digestion is rarely deliberately rekindled after the fasting or detox process. So ama can build up or worsen. Also, if ama gets brought to the surface through the process of detoxing, but then it is not properly or effectively eliminated, then it will be pushed deeper into the tissues as soon as the person goes back to their normal sort of diet and lifestyle. So the concept of fasting from an Ayurvedic perspective is not the common Western practice of going several days without food. Instead, fasting is more monodieting or following a very light dosha-specific diet in reduced quantity, or fasting for a very short period of time. And the benefits of this type of fasting are that it's going to enkindle our Agni, reduce and scrape Ama, and it will also help to balance excess doshic buildup. So an Ayurvedic fasting protocol for Vata will include a fast on fresh orange juice or another similar type of juice or fruit during regular meal times only. And you can also add warming Vata spices to the juice, which will help to enkindle Agni. And we'll only want to fast for 2 to 3 consecutive meals, 1 day per week only. So with no snacking. Hot water and hot and warm water is fine to drink throughout. And then fasting on different days is going to have varying effects. So fasting on Saturday will help for the pacification of Saturn energy, which if we're experiencing weakness of muscles or bones, any sort of joint issue or nervous system issue. Fasting on Monday will help to balance moon energy, which is beneficial for any emotional issues. And then fasting on Thursday will help balance Mercury energy and can help with balancing a quickly changing temperament, calming too fast speech, and other sorts of issues of this nature. So for Pitta dosha, we'll want to fast on pomegranate juice, or also maybe carrot, romaine, or celery juices during regular meal times only. And then we can add cilantro or other Pitta cooling herbs and spices to the juice. For Pitta, we'll want to fast for 3 to 4 consecutive meals. So that's 1 to 2 days per week only. And again, there's no snacking during this, but plain hot or warm water is okay throughout. And then fasting on Tuesday is going to pacify Mars energy and help calm any impulsive or aggressive behaviors. And Sunday will help to pacify Sun energy and balance ego issues. When fasting for Kapha dosha, we'll want to fast on apple juice or similar juices, also carrot, romaine, and celery juice during regular meal times only, with Kapha warming and drying spices. Vegetable juices are probably better for Kapha because so much fruit juice is going to provide too much sugar for Kapha dosha. And for Kapha, we can fast for 3 to 6 consecutive meals, 1 to 2 days per week only, and no snacking. Plain hot water is fine throughout again. You can even take hot water with 1 teaspoon of raw honey and lemon or apple cider vinegar. And we'll consider fasting on Thursday for pacification of Jupiter energy, which is going to help balance the blood sugar, reduce sugar cravings, and reduce the inclination for overindulgence. Next, we'll discuss food and the effect that it has on our mind. So, food and the three gunas. So, everything we eat, ingest, see, or do has characteristics of one of the three gunas, which are sattva, rajas, and tamas. So, sattva guna is the mode of purity, nourishment, and harmony, and is really the ultimate goal of our mind and is the state of balanced existence. Rajas is the mode of passion or activity and is characterized by activity, creativity, and initiating change. In its negative form, it has the tendency to be angry, aggressive, and jealous. And then tamas is the state of inertia and what helps to keep us grounded. But in its negative form, it can be destructive, selfish, and lead us to excessive attachment. So again, all of these three gunas are present in everyone and everything, but the proportion is different. So everything that we eat and consume is going to affect the three gunas within us. So overindulging in raw food, cold food, wrong food combinations, overeating, and eating late at night is going to increase vata tendencies, which results in an increase in tamasic qualities. And then eating processed, junk, old, frozen, and canned food is going to lead us to ignorance, laziness, and increases kapha tendencies, and also causes an increase in tamasic qualities. And then overindulging in things like red meat, spicy, sharp foods is going to lead to passion, anger, excessive sexual energy, and will increase pitta tendencies, which will then result in an increase in rajasic qualities. So looking at rajasic and tamasic food, rajasic food promotes activity but disturbs the equilibrium of the mind and can cause anger and irritability, particularly in pitta dosha. So examples of some rajasic foods are coffee, caffeinated tea, caffeinated sodas, or caffeine in any form, heavily spiced foods, heavily salted foods, very pungent foods like onion and garlic, eggs, chocolate, chilies, and hot spices. And then tamasic foods, or foods in the mode of darkness, are going to cause heaviness in the body and sluggishness in the mind. And these foods are going to reduce the body's ability to fight disease and undermine our immunity and our ojas. So examples of tamasic food include alcohol, stale food and leftovers, processed foods, refined flour, refined sugar, excessive dairy and wheat, as well as mushrooms and nightshade vegetables. And then sattvic foods are the ideal because they bring clarity to the mind and are nourishing and beneficial to the body. So they are going to be light and easy to digest, freshly prepared foods. Sattvic foods are prepared with love, good intention, and mindfulness. And they're going to be high in prana and promote purity of the mind and body. So foods situated in the mode of purity and goodness are whole grains, pumpkins, ghee, root vegetables, fresh leafy vegetables, and all fruits and legumes. So, however, it is possible to have too much of a good thing, so we shouldn't overindulge in sattvic foods either, as this will increase tamas. So sometimes rajasic foods and spices are necessary to help move someone who is more tamasic toward the sattvic state. So in moderation, rajasic spices will shift someone who is sluggish or more dull-minded to a more rajasic or active frame of mind, which will then allow them to be more motivated to move toward a more sattvic state. So you can kind of think of it like sometimes it's too big of a leap to shift directly from tamasic to sattvic. So we need the motivating aspect of rajas to kind of catapult us forward, since eating sattvic foods alone won't really be enough to make this shift from the sort of depths of tamas. So next we'll look at rasas and emotions. So as we know, rasas or tastes are correlated with the doshas, and consuming too much of a given taste can imbalance its associated dosha. So rasas also have associating emotions or actions, and overindulgence of a particular taste can result in the negative counterpart or extreme version of the action. For example, the prabhava or action associated with the sweet rasa is compassion or satisfaction, but overindulgence or taken in excess will result in attachment or complacency. So the sweet taste can have a cooling effect on the anger or aggravation of pitta dosha. It can help to comfort the tendency toward insecurity of vata, but it will cause an increase in the complacency aspect of kapha dosha. The sour taste is associated with the action of stimulation and discernment, but overindulgence of the sour taste is going to cause passion, anger, and envy. So it has the effect of increasing the sort of hot-headed nature of pitta dosha, and it will cause existing attachments to be that much stronger. So the salty taste has the prabhava of confidence, but in excess, it will result in greed, overambition, and too much interest in hedonistic endeavors. And then the bitter taste has the prabhava of isolation and dissatisfaction, and bitter is the antagonist or opposite of the sweet taste. So sweet as we know, is satisfaction. So as its opposite, bitter must therefore be dissatisfaction. So what would be the positive aspect of dissatisfaction? Well, it creates a desire for change. So just how contentment can lead to complacency, dissatisfaction will inspire change and growth. So that is what the bitter taste provides. That's the kind of positive action. Bitter kind of dilates channels that are too constricted in the body and will reduce complacency caused by kapha, as well as calming anger caused by pitta. However, too much bitter will have the effect of leading to grief and sorrow, so we don't want to consume it in excess. The action associated with the astringent rasa is introspection and directing attention inward instead of a more outward display. So the astringent taste helps to tonify the body and the mind and allows us to look within, but too much of the astringent taste is going to result in insecurity and fear, since it will cause us to kind of look at ourselves too much, resulting in anxiety and too much self-consciousness. And then the pungent taste has the action of being bold and extroverted, but with overindulgence, it can cause deceit and anger. So the pungent taste increases activity and excitement, but an excessive amount will create anger or impatience. So having an awareness of the effects that the six tastes have on our mind and our emotions will really help us to consciously use them in a positive way, and will allow us to make modifications through our diet in order to mitigate the effects of certain emotions that we might be experiencing at a given time. So the effect of rasas on the mind. For the most balancing rasas for vata mind are going to be sweet, sour, and salty. And the beneficial effect that these will have on the mind are going to inspire compassion, grounding, fewer mood swings, confidence, and the ability to keep a routine. So when vata is out of balance, the inverse of these traits are more apt to show. So the sweet, sour, and salty rasas will help to stabilize vata and inspire these positive actions. For pitta mind, the most balancing tastes are sweet, bitter, and astringent. And when pitta is out of balance, we experience impatience, overexertion, and the need to be busy all of the time. But these tastes will help to bring our minds into balance and allow us to experience satisfaction, patience, less need for the adrenaline rush, and less likely to be overbusy. The most balancing rasas for kapha mind are pungent, bitter, and astringent, which will have the beneficial action of creating motivation, allowing us to be more flexible and willing to change. And they can reduce depression and make us less likely to have unhealthy attachment. So next we'll discuss some common digestive disorders from a Western perspective and then from an Ayurvedic perspective. So the first one that we'll look at is celiac disease and gluten intolerance. So from a Western perspective, this is an inflammatory reaction to gluten, which is a protein that is found in wheat, barley, rye, and sometimes in oats as a result of processing. So thanks in part to genetically modified foods, some estimates say as many as 1 in 4 people have an issue with gluten. And what happens is the inflammatory reaction causes damage to the lining of the small intestine and damage to the intestinal villi, which prevent the absorption of nutrients like vitamin A, D, E, K, and calcium, etc. So the function of the intestinal villi, which are little thread-like objects that line the intestines, is to increase the internal surface area of the intestinal walls, which makes a greater surface area for the absorption of nutrients. So when these villi get damaged, then we are not able to absorb the proper amount of nutrients. So symptoms are going to include abdominal pain, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, foul-smelling stools, and sometimes even bloody stools. And then secondary symptoms include fatigue, depression, hair loss, bone loss, skin problems such as dryness, acne, itchiness, even eczema, reactivity to chemicals, and then irregular periods, nosebleeds, and tingling or numbness in the hands. So Western doctors will typically perform antibody tests, a biopsy to remove a bit of tissue of the small intestine, and various blood tests such as for alkaline phosphatase to detect bone loss. And then treatment from a Western approach is a gluten-free diet and vitamin and mineral supplements, since the body is not effectively absorbing these from foods. Also common is the prescribing of antidepressants along with anti-inflammatories. So celiac can be a very socially limiting disease, as it's very hard to go out to eat or to have dinner at someone's house, since you have to be so diligent in avoiding gluten. So it's very common to have secondary mental and social effects. I have a friend who has a child with celiacs, and he's basically he doesn't like to eat at all because he's scared of essentially of what food is going to do to him, because he's had it his whole life, and it's so it was so painful when he would eat food with gluten, that even now on a gluten-free diet, he has this relationship with food where he would just kind of rather avoid it in general. And so it's causing a lot of other secondary problems. So celiac disease in Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, celiac is a disease of the anavahasrotas, or the food channel, and it is an issue of imbalanced Agni. So if Agni is strong, the intestinal villi would be healthy, and if Agni is weak, then the villi would be weak. So the gunas of gluten are gross, heavy, sticky, dull, and oily. And these qualities can cause low Agni and then result in Ama. So according to Ayurveda, cellular Agni maintains cellular intelligence and selectivity, but in cases of a chronic Agni disorder, cells will lose their intelligence, which then affects their selectivity. So in celiac disease, cells in the intestine react to gluten like they would to a bacteria or virus, and produces an inflammatory response and immune reaction. So Ayurvedic recommendations for celiac are a gluten-free diet and general Agni balancing and Ama reducing protocols. So definitely avoid red meat, eat light meals, soups, fresh foods always, nothing processed, drink hot water, no cold foods, and then consume herbs and spices that address Agni and Ama, ginger, kumari, guduchi, food, lifestyle, and herb recommendations to pacify the aggravated doshas. Usually a Vata Pitta diet will be used in order to address the inflammation and gas and bloating that is present. And then eating things that soothe the lining of the intestines, such as ghee, soups, and dals are great, as well as nourishing sattvic foods to promote ojas, such as pumpkin is really great, since there may be an immunity correlation between with celiac. So next we'll look at irritable bowel syndrome. And in Western medicine, it's unknown exactly why this occurs, but 1 in 6 people have symptoms of IBS. And symptoms include abdominal pain and cramping, fullness, gas, bloating, changes in bowel movements, usually constipation, although some fluctuate between constipation and diarrhea. And there's no specific test for IBS, but doctors will usually test to rule out lactose intolerance, gluten intolerance, and others. So treatment from a Western approach is lifestyle changes like adding regular exercise, avoiding large meals, avoiding caffeine, increase in fiber. Also, very often antidepressants are prescribed. The gut and the mood are so strongly correlated that when there's an issue like IBS, it can really have an effect on the mind. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, IBS is a disease of the Anavahasrota, or the food channel, and also a condition of disrupted Agni. So the low Agni results in accumulation of Ama in the intestines, which then causes weakness, debility, foul-smelling stools, cramping, pain, and then constipation or loose stools. And IBS can be classified as either Vata, Pitta, Kapha, or all three, depending on the specific symptoms that manifest. So Vata type of IBS will include constipation, bloating, weight loss, feeling cold, anal fissures, and anxiety. And Pitta type of IBS will have the symptoms of heartburn, loose stools, foul smelling stools, and inflammation. And Kapha type of IBS will include mucus in the stools, sluggish bowels, and general heaviness in the body. And to address IBS in Ayurveda, we want to first correct Agni and reduce Ama with general Agni and Ama protocols. Again, this means no red meat, no processed foods, no cold foods, meals that are light, soups, fresh foods, hot water, along with Agni boosting and Ama reducing herbs and spices. And then we also want to then adopt protocols to pacify the aggravated doshas, including spices and herbs such as hing for bloating and gassiness, fennel for loose stools, or triphala to help to normalize bowel movements and strengthen the intestines. So we've discussed Ayurveda versus Western nutrition a while back, and some of the challenges that arise are getting people to cook at home with more natural ingredients or organic whole foods rather than buying packaged or processed foods that are usually cheaper or more convenient to cook, and some of which people have been fooled to think are healthy if they are low fat, low carb, low sugar, etc. So Western nutrition really doesn't emphasize mindful or conscious eating. So when we have clients who have very busy schedules and are used to eating while working or driving or reading, talking, it's going to be a challenge to encourage them to really take the time to sit down and have a mindful meal. So from a counseling perspective, when we're working with clients, it really helps to start with one or two main tips or recommendations instead of overwhelming people with too much information. So as their mind then becomes more sattvic and they see results, then you can start including other tips. So what I found is that one of the most important things to gauge is really where the client is at in their relationship to diet, their health, and their openness to alternative approaches. So I've had some people who are just so eager and you know that they're going to be really committed to making a full dietary and lifestyle change. And then there are others who may be interested in what we're doing, but really aren't at the point in their life where they're fully able to commit to a big lifestyle and diet change. So, but then you get people who are seemingly stuck in their ways, but then you give one dietary or even herbal recommendation, they see results, and then all of a sudden they sort of become believers and are ready to take on a whole protocol. So I feel that one of the most important things with any client or case study that you are working with is to really make the person feel comfortable and never wrong. So even if they're telling you habits that are making you cringe on the inside. It's never wrong because everyone really has their own sort of journey and everyone starts somewhere. So sometimes the people who seem to have the worst habits at the beginning actually have the most successful transformations because it's easier to elicit that initial response or shift in behavior or lifestyle. Okay, so now we'll get into some different recipes. So Manjalali is going to send a checklist with exactly what your assignments are in terms of cooking assignments, but the following are some sample recipes that students have made in the past that you can definitely use. So we'll just go through these briefly now, and then you can use this as a resource to go back to for the recipes. So this is a chutney, a peach raisin chutney designed to pacify vata. So it has 4 large peaches, 1/3 cup raisins, 1/2 small jalapeno pepper, 2 cardamom pods, 1 teaspoon cloves, 1/4 teaspoon fennel, 1/4 teaspoon hing, 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, and 2 tablespoons ghee with a pinch of salt. So what you want to do is heat ghee on medium until it becomes liquefied, and then add the crushed cardamom, cloves, and fennel first. And you'll saute these in the ghee for about a minute, and then add the hing and cinnamon and saute for 1 more minute. Next, you'll add the peaches and jalapeno, and then let this simmer for anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes until the peaches begin to soften and become more liquefied. And then you'll stir in the raisins and the salt and stir everything together. Then you can either eat it while it's warm or refrigerate for 1 to 3 hours. This is another chutney assignment or recipe, and this one is with mangoes and pears. So this is really good for pitta dosha. Again, it's a similar method where you heat the ghee and the spices first, and then you'll add the mangoes and pears and simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. And then in terms of making ghee, I think some of you have done this already, but if you haven't, this is a tip that is to use a metal coffee filter to strain it instead of a paper one, since the paper ones can tend to collapse. So you can find these for pretty cheap, and that makes making the ghee even easier. And then this is a kashaya recipe. So basically a kashaya is a decoction where you essentially take 1 part herb with 16 parts water or liquid, other type of liquid, and you boil it and reduce it down to 1/8, and then you filter it through a cloth, and the resulting liquid is the kashaya. So this one is specifically for pitta vata, and it includes milk, fennel, coriander, cumin, turmeric, cardamom, cinnamon, saffron, ginger, tulsi, and then shatavari. So that's a really really nice combination of a lot of different herbs and spices. And then here is another kashaya tea. This is for pitta dosha. This is a more simple one with fennel, cumin, cinnamon, turmeric, and cardamom pods. And here's a recipe for an Ayurvedic soup. And this one is specifically for Pitta dosha. And the ingredients here are fennel, cumin, turmeric, cardamom, ghee, carrots, yellow squash, purple cabbage, and vegetable stock, and then mung dal, along with cilantro and coconut. So that sounds delicious. And then here is another soup for Pitta dosha that contains onion. Onion's a little pungent for Pitta, but maybe just a little bit. And then tomato, fennel, coriander, black beans, cilantro, and half of a lime. And then here are a couple khichdi recipes. So the first one on the left can be for Pitta kapha. And this includes green mung dal, basmati rice, ginger. I would use less ginger for Pitta. 2 tablespoons unsweetened shredded coconut, cilantro, ghee, turmeric, cardamom, coriander, salt, and water. And then the one on the right can be for Pitta or Vata. And this one includes split mung dal, basmati rice, ghee, cumin and fennel, turmeric, coriander, hing, ginger, garlic, which we'll omit if it's for a Pitta person, and then cilantro and carrots, Himalayan rock, pink salt, and water. Okay, so now I'm gonna pass this over to Manjalali.
That was a lovely class. Thank you, Christina. Any questions? I suggest you go through the class one more time. It'll get posted by tomorrow in AC 102 because there was so much information. Honestly, it's yeah, and also we'll share this. It's already on AC 102. You can actually print these out, and when you start seeing clients, or at least even just the recipes, you can have them in your kitchen and start experimenting with the recipes. So Troy, you're going to be cooking for your family next week with all these recipes, huh? Yeah, just download it and yeah, they're just so much fun. Honestly, Ayurvedic, once you start practicing as an Ayurvedic counselor, there is nothing that attracts people. I mean, when both Atul and I started 10 years ago, we cook, and anyone who walks in through a door, whether it's our office or home, we will not let the person leave till they've eaten something. If they're not hungry, we pack them food. And yeah, and that's the best way, not just for yourself, even for your family. Like we get invited for family Thanksgiving and Christmases and whatnot at Henry's Atul's family, and they're all Christians. And we'll take chutneys, we'll take okra, we'll take veggies, and they're a super hit. Oh yeah, that's a great question, Troy. The dried ginger metabolizes ama, number one, and it actually sucks up the excess water. So kaphas tend to have water retention. And if you're going to use fresh ginger for kapha, then you actually have to boil it in water like a ginger tea. But fresh ginger juice or making a ginger juice directly, it's very heavy for a kapha to digest and too pungent and just very heavy. Yeah. So, and it's, yeah, I mean, just except for a pitta person, you don't want to give too much ginger anyway. But yeah, try to use more. I mean, the way I do it for when I cook is I will definitely use dry. In fact, I put trikadu and everything, and my kids complain. Trikadu has dry ginger, black pepper, and long pepper, which basically dries ama. And when we have, and of course, you're in Houston, you have so much rains, and when it's raining outside, there sometimes tends to be congestion. And I think I just saw the news, Houston was completely flooded. And when it's raining outside, you want to dry out the moisture in your body. You don't want, especially if you're a kapha person, right? So doing a kashaya, doing soups, doing khichdi, using dry ginger, black pepper, long pepper, which is trikadu, is really great for that weather. Obviously, you're not going to do it if you're in Phoenix, Arizona. It's dry and 117 degrees. You want to do probably a cooling diet at that time. So it also kind of depends on where you are. Hope that answers your question. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'm going to end. And please watch it again. There's no homework. Just try to finish what is already there. Um, I think I had posted one homework a few days ago. Let me just share it very, very quickly. Uh, if I can find it. Oh, hang on a second. Yeah, I will just share it on the. This was one of the AC 102 assignments. I'd given 6 or 7 using Ayurvedic beverages. Choose the best beverage for, A, B, C, D person. I think Laurie had already answered it. So if you get time, do it. Otherwise, watch the class again, start cooking, and finish previous assignments. And I'll see you on Sunday. Take care. Thank you.